Hey everybody, what's going on? Emo Tempest here, and I'm coming to you with one of my last decks for the Opus 25 set. I know it's been a while. I will save you the boring explanations, but I had to get this out. We just got the set release for 26, but I know a few of you have LQs for the next 2 weeks left with this format, so I definitely wanted to share this one last time. There's actually only one Opus 25 card in this deck, and it is Sephiroth, and you may never need it, but that's not the point. The point is I thought I put in the time to make this playable for the meta. I know there's been a lot of complaints and stuff, but I found that it works, is I guess the short story for it. But this is based off of the Haru's original concept after last year's Worlds. He said, if I remember correctly, this was his other option for his deck B, other than the fire water monsters, or it was in between this, fire water monsters, and Refia, and I don't forget if there was a fourth choice or not, but I saw this right away because, let's face it, Barnabas Odin was insane, and I just think we never found a chance to play it. The main reason, there's a couple main reasons we decided to build this and play this and stick with it. I'm pretty sure I've had it built since that day, since I saw that list. But the main reason is Lightning. I found that Lightning is such an excellent card into the current meta, into what I think might be the rest of the formats. And I say that because you're always going to be put into a situation where your opponent has more forwards than you. Considering if Yuna sticks around or not, as well as just the nature of the game, getting faster, getting more explosive. Most decks are spitting out 2 to 3 forwards a turn, whether it's in a control situation or not. Like even as far as Mono Earth was going, right? It would go Leo, Wool, Titus, or Une, or Mont into Une. You know what I'm saying? And so that same general concept has been going on for a while, right? Like we can go back as far as when Magissa started, right? And so the fact that Lightning just not only is removal, but it also removes them from the game, it's designed to kind of combat that, right? Now if we're looking at the pain points in the meta right now, it's Yuna, Cecil, and just and Knights, right? Just aggro, right? So this helps you deal with that. She has her own built-in security blanket, right? Like the switch schemata, like you can remove her from the game and then she'll come back at the end of the turn. The two best parts about that is that you'll be able to get rid of 2 forward, possibly get rid of 2 forwards, but also the fact that during the end step, cards like Ishtola, cards like Yuna, Ama, Water Tarasu, whatever you want, whatever you think, or you can't interact with, right? So when she comes in, she is going to remove something else. Yes, you'll still have to pay tax per se on Cecil because you do target, and that is an auto that just triggers when you target. So it's not considered, your opponent responding. But this is just the best way to maneuver through the rest of your turns, or through the rest of the game when you create a scenario where your opponent cannot do anything, right? And so that's why we're playing this Lightning, and enough Lightnings to fuel this whole thing. The Emperor is the same thing. The Emperor came in through it was one of the best options, tech choices, if you will, for the current meta, right? You have Knights having attacks, for what's his name, for Ramses' ability. You have Yuna, of course, and a short other list of Palom, Porum, and things like that. Even Refia has to pay an extra 2 CP, which doesn't necessarily hurt when they're full on Wool backups and characters, but in the earlier game, this does set a precedent. And I think I found it to be my favorite tech for the meta. And so it was a natural fit into here. The Barnabas Odin thing, I think statistically, Lev 6 is at an all-time low. And I think the fact that it is a 10k first strike and can attack twice into these decks that don't necessarily have a lot of EX bursts, right? We're looking at Knights and Yuna. Yuna has a few more, right, with the Thordins and your Cecils, and your Hooded Men and Shinras and stuff like that, but it's nothing serious. It's nothing that really changes the form, the problem that this deck originally had, which was Lev 6 was at an all-time high, Odins were at an all-time high, just pretty much straight like removal bursts that really set you put you in a deficit in terms of like CP value and efficiency. And so now I think it shines a lot more, especially now that Yuna just does everything ice cards can do, like freezing. Even if they dull and freeze this, if I draw the S, you're gonna walk right into it, right? Estinian is just part of the aggro essence to this deck, like aggro / OTK part, right? Because there is turns where I can take you from 1 to 7, right? If you're not careful, if you don't know what this deck does, you fall for that trap right away. And again, considering the level of EX burst threats is at an all-time low, yes, it's value, right? Like you can't technically poke 1 or 2 anymore without getting punished, because they'll start their turn with 7 or 8 cards. But if I can, even if I hit you the first one and then I hit you straight into 7, those cards shouldn't matter. Unless it's a Kuchulain or whatever, which, you can blank and stop the OTK, right? Because you can stop the haste or the fact that they can attack again. And so that's just the way it is. But, either way. I already mentioned this. The Aranea is just, yes, it's an EX burst. And in some decks, you are able to take advantage of the 3 and 5, like breaking at damage 5, or both autos. So that is helpful. Knights particularly, it ran into it with cadets, and there's a few other ones there that you can break a 5 and a 3 or less. So it is helpful. It's also just so we don't, we can kind of color fix or like keep the search strings going from the backup line, but we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, that's it for the forwards. It's pretty straightforward. Again, you're capitalizing on all of these Lightning's abilities. I didn't really touch on these, but this one is pretty self-explanatory. If you've ever played it, it's the Road to Worlds promo or whatever right now, or one of them, that you really need this. I'm glad they made a reprint of it, but it's just great value, right? It's a 2 to get a card. It's pretty much free, right? And you can also bring them back later as you go. There's enough lightnings to facilitate the effect. This one is my favorite one that kind of catches people off guard too. It's you'll remove one of these lightnings and then just drop it in front of something, and they'll have to just lose a forward, right? Because that's just the nature of it, right? So it's cool. I've gotten a lot of people off guard with this, and it helps out a lot. But again, both engines is Lightning and Barnabas. Next, summons, keeping the EX count heavy. It used to be 3 Kuch, 3 Levs, and like 3 of the Odins. But I needed to make space for Ixion, considering, again, just really helpful into all these silly decks that are out there, Knights and Yuna. Even if you only get rid of Yuna and Rosa, or Laswell and, I don't know, the 2-drop Beatrix, it's like, it makes a big difference. The Ixion is too important to open up the rest of the turn that you can actually play through this game again. And I think, I'm sure everyone has noticed this, but it's back, right? Like, it's necessary again. I don't know if it'll continue into the next set, right? Because like I said, we just got it and we're gonna go over it. But yeah, this was again, I think it's just too important. Quick answer to just stop the value. Alice into Ishtola, the Refia auto, to get the activate everything, the Warrior of Light auto, you name it, you got it, right? Just that one extra layer of stuff. Yeah, the Odins are pretty self-explanatory, just straight removal. Again, bringing these back in a meta where where for some reason people are just going nuts and attacking like for no reason. Yeah, it's just punish. And again, we brought Lev 6 down to 1 because we only have 6 water forwards, so we oftentimes don't get that full value unless you have a light forward. Your opponent has a light or dark character on the board forward, and it's unnecessary. So yes, it's in there for that one-of situation where I can, bounce something and get rid of the light or dark. But I could, by the time I see it, if I don't see it early on, yes, there will be lightnings The less likely it is to hit it early, the more likely it is there is water forwards in the break zone when it does hit, if it hits. Backups. So we switched these around too again. I cut things like it was triple Reeve before, and I think it was triple Sarah originally, or more Thordins, right? Because you wanted to keep the EX count. So I dropped those to 1, because realistically you didn't need all of them. So I liked a little diversity. And so we added other EX bursts that helped facilitate, control of the early game, which was Seymour. The Unidecks don't have haste, so if you open turn 1 Seymour into the Ixion, which is almost what I did every time while practicing and testing, I always had it. So they would have to start to begin to play around me, which means I'm holding the biggest threat, which means I'm in control, which means I have time to set up, or I can just put the pressure on in different ways, right? The Kuja was the same thing. It's just the cheapest out for the best result. Just answer the unit. We can deal with the Cecil when it's time. The unit's the biggest problem, right? Also, just 2 EX bursts that help, right? Like if they hit this on damage, all right, I'll put the Lev 6 or the Odin on top. That stops the turn. I'll draw it next turn. That's fine, and we'll continue from there, right? The Kuja just straight breaks it, right? Not a big deal. The Emperor Gestalt is in here mainly because water doesn't have, that control of removing from the game so much, like in terms of summons and backups and stuff like that, or LBs for that matter. So that's why the reason I like it a lot more, and the same thing goes with the Lightning, is because that was my answer to the meta before, right? When I was playing Medine and Citra. RFG is king. If you don't know that, it just is, right? Like, so the fact that Lightning does it and that Emperor Gestalt does it, and I'll talk about it in a second with Gilgamesh too. That's why we're at 2 Gilgamesh. It's like everyone comfortably pitches forwards because they can recur them in more than one way. But when their play style is, too comfortable like that, you can just be like, okay, Gilgamesh, get rid of whatever, the Refia or the Wolves or whatever. And then sure enough, they're big pieces that change the matchup for you, or that they were counting on recovering, are gone. And so they're either waiting longer to draw them or wasting searches to get them, instead of the way, it's just disruption, right? And having this ready for the first effect, don't even worry about it. You'll rarely ever do it, but it's an option, right? Just pitch a card, get a forward back. That's fine. I never used it, I'll be honest, even if I needed an S or something, or like it never was necessary because I'd always have it on early, or I never saw it, right? But you could always get an S back for any of them, and then, or you could get something back and shove it back into the deck with Loperit. Those are all options, sure, but it never happened for me. But the second one, the choose 4 cards, remove them, draw a card, it's just key. Keeping that threat, right? Like keeping that open on their turns is just too much. The Lenas, we don't take advantage of Rays too much, but the EX burst is the important part, right? Even on the terms where we're poking 1 or 2, this has to be out, because it's the only way that any aggro deck should be able to, keep doing what it does for longer turns, and this deck is no different in that scenario. The rest is kind of just filtering. So we have the Sarah into the King or Burmecia or Lena. Even I think in most scenarios, most players will always go to the King to the color fix. This deck, you do not do that. Unless you already have Lena in your hand, you always go Sarah into Lena, because the fact that you need to recover those draws when you get hit with something or they draw extra cards, it is important. So never. Again, unless you have it, or you have like Loperits or Thordins in hand, don't color fix. Because you'll see one of these one way or another, I promise. Or you have enough Lightning cards. It's pretty even. It's a 24-21 spread in Lightning's favor. But you need to always get it. Loperit, probably the most important backup, if not the Lena, right? It's a close tie for both. But in terms of the clog in your hand, this fixes it. I can't tell you how many times in games I have needed to put an Emperor back or an Odin back, or I just switch out lightnings. Like I'll put one back into the deck to get, and then just draw something else, right? And like, it's too important. Same thing with the Aranea. Like I don't want to play King of Burmecia into nothing, so I'll Lopper it first, put the Aranea back, then play Burmecia, get it back. Just keep the value on keeping my turns in place. Also, in let's say you draw some of these too early, you don't want to pitch them all. You can put them in, then search with some of your other cards or something. But it's just too helpful. I think it's important to make sure you have at least one on board at any game, and it's mainly for that reason, right? You want to be able to put these back in the deck or these back in the deck, and just don't get clogged up, because the worst thing for any deck that primes is when you're out of priming targets. So Lopper fixes that. The Cid of the Clan Gully and the Reeve and the Thornton are pretty straightforward. This was a last minute addition just because, again, we have more lightning forwards that we can recover, and I felt like, again, I had 2 levs. I had brought it down to 2 levs, and I was like, I don't ever really hit this or ever get the full value, so I cut it down to 1 for the Cid. It also just put the backups at an even 15, which is where most decks are comfortable now. The Reeve was at 3, but after I saw it, again, while it was at 3, after I played one, yes, I saw it earlier on the opening hands. It just meant that I would draw into more dead cards, and I would rather draw into this, right? These, or even this. And then the Thornton just, again, came down in numbers just to make space for, a variety of things, right? Like for the Emperors, and I even had to cut down. The original list had 3 of this Earth Lightning as well, but we brought it down. The LB is pretty straightforward. We don't need to draw too much. We don't need to keep pushing that sometimes more than one Leo, because there's so much filtering going on. And then again, the Emperors, this brings itself out, this primes into this, so you're always thinning the deck out. And so you don't need that constant, and this is drawing you a card, right, usually. So 1 extra Leo is fine. 2 Cloud, I think this is probably the only one I never casted twice. But it's a hard argument to say you can cut it down to 1 for something else, because I either casted 1 and 1 or 2 of this, but there was times where I casted 1 of this and left it there because I thought I would need it again. Probably the single most important ones are the Gilgamesh and the Lunafreya. I touched on this, but again, the main reason is you want to pick away at their turn. On the turns where you're not attacking, you're picking away at their resources. So you RFG something, and then you come back to Gilgamesh for the just remove 2 important cards out of the break zone. And then this deck has 20 EX burst, so Lunafreya has really good numbers, and as long as you count before you do it, you should expect something to always hit with this. So this is a very strong card in this deck, because you should always hit something, whether it's as minimal as draw a card and blank, or just Thornton, Reeve, break, you pick it, right? Like the Sephiroth is the final card that I think ultimately I found it too expensive. It is just a straight up unicard, right? Like in most scenarios, this unit can't enter this deck, right? This card, right? Like even if it stops the auto on enters, you can't stop the break something at the end of the turn. If it tries to stop the attack and everything, it has to dull itself. The only way it survives is if it has the Miwa, and you leave Sephiroth the only dull thing on the floor. Or no, but it says other than Sephiroth anyway, right? Like, so it doesn't matter, right? It's such a giant waste of resources for them to keep it, but Sephiroth should always take something out. And as long as it's doing that, unit just loses its value. And if they try to return aggressive and just attack out, then they run into all this other stuff. Again, I think we had enough stuff between the Emperor, the Kuja, and the Lightnings to deal with the deck. Again, Barnabas just kill something on entry too. I mean, after we prime, not on entry, let me be clear. When you prime, you just straight AK something, and then that's, it's reduction also, by the way. This is 8,000 power into this turn. Sorry, I just force of habit when speaking, but yeah, it's just solid. But again, this is I drew really bad. They went 5, forwards turn 1 kind of scenario, right? Like, it's unlikely, but it was in there for that reason. Now, alternatively, you put Edge in here. throughout the whole tournaments and all the practice, there were more times where I said, okay, I have Estinian and I have this lightning out and I can shoot for 7 3 times, potentially, as opposed to I need to cast this. Also, with the 8 CP and the 4 limit break, I would rather just play Cloud and Luna Freya on the same turn. So it's tough. or like Cloud and or this or Luna and this, or whatever, any combination of the other two that just eats up in this. So it's in there because it's obviously helpful, but I've never casted it. So all right, guys, that's the list. Again, it works into a lot of things. It's not perfect, but it is solid. I don't know where the changes need to be made, but as of right now, it works very well. Take that which you will. Again, the original concept came from Haru, our world champ, and shout outs to him obviously for coming up with the idea. I just took it and ran. This had monsters before too. I think before I realized Yuna was so important, it had 3 worms, a Melusine, and the graph and all that stuff. And again, that was working fine. It also had like all the lightnings, right? And didn't have the Emperor. But as the testing went on, we took all that out to adjust. So I don't know where this will go in the next set. But for now, for those who still have LQs to play and time to practice, maybe think about it. Yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks so much for your time. Title comes from K-Pop Demon Hunters. If you didn't know, go check that out too. I'll see you later. Enjoy.